Yeah, it's the Chris Michaels Show on a Tuesday because that's when I do go live. I have a little bit of brain fog today, so you'll have to excuse me. I know I am doing this a little bit earlier than what I normally do. I'm supposed to be on at 9 p.m., but being that it is 6:40, I'm in the drive home radio block. So there we go. And we will continue along. So chemtrails, chemtrails, chemtrails. I'm not going to get into it now just yet. But guess what? People like me, Greg, many others have been validated thanks to Tucker Carlson, despite what you may think of him and his pedigree and his family and where they come from, whether or not they're trying to gaslight you into some direction. Tucker Carlson did do the right thing. He had on a guest that validated a lot of what we said. Now, you can also say that it could be some kind of psyop, a limited drop. You know how they do it, and where they release a little bit of information to wet your whistle, and then they just like ride off into the sunset, and nothing ever happens beyond that. So, but we'll get into that. Maybe there's something a little bit more down the road. So, first up in the idiocy column, because Chris Michaels likes to bring up morons. We go over to Mexico. Yes, Mexico is now doing what it said would never work. There are some protests coming up, and the head of Mexico, Miss Scheinbaum, is going to be doing installations. Yes, Mexican President Claudia Scheinbaum has built an armored wall outside the presidential palace ahead of a major protest. But I thought that walls don't work. I thought that we could never, ever, ever have walls or barbed wire to stop any kind of immigration or any kind of people going on any property. After all, what is property to begin with? I mean, you just can't say that you are an American. You stole that land. And if we were really adding apples to apples and oranges to oranges, then guess what? That land that all of these Mexicans are on really doesn't even belong to them, because Spain came over, took it over from the American Indians that were over there. And guess what? You are also interlocutors and invasive along the Mexican land. So we'll see if the wall around Miss Scheinbaum's residence and government buildings actually work. But if the American border wall is any indication of whether or not this will be successful, I will probably put it into the success column. So I never want to hear another liberal come out and say that walls don't work and we cannot stop immigration. This will be a prime example of how walls can be effective deterrents for illegal immigration. So kudos to Ms. Scheinbaum. She is leading the charge in protecting borders all around Mexico. Next, what do we have here? We've got Miss Hochul. Yes, that's right. Every time I see Miss Kathy Hochul, governor of New York, I think, one, sniveling fool; two, somebody that has not won a legitimate election; three, I want to hold my hand out, palm up, with a carrot or an apple, because this equine-faced loser is beyond corrupt. We found out today that ex-Hochul aide that was spying for China. Yes, that's right. Chinese former top aide to New York City or New York Governor Kathy Hochul, former Governor Andrew Cuomo aide as well, enjoyed a lavish lifestyle and millions of dollars in kickbacks. Yes, why? Well, Miss Linda Soon, 41 years of age, my goodness, is accused of working as an unregistered operative for the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, and using her position to influence the governors into acting favorably towards Beijing, according to the Daily Mail. Now, what else do we have to know about all of this? Well, Miss Linda Sun, she was in a prime position to govern which way COVID was going to go. So this also leads down the road that we have some kind of Chinese cooperation when it comes to the release of the COVID scourge from the 2020 to 2021 era to try to unseat Donald Trump. And why do I say that there is some level of Chinese cooperation? Well, beyond what Donald Trump likes to say as the China virus, we have to assume that people like Dr. Fauci and many others like Francis Collins and the Scarf Queen, Deborah Birx, she doesn't like to show her turkey neck, they were working with contractors that were researching weapons of mass destruction under the guise of gain of function research. Read between the lines, right? Biological research, weapons of mass destruction, and they couldn't do it legally in the United States, so they outsourced the research into places like the Ukraine and China. The Russians have released a lot of material talking about the biolabs over there in the Ukraine that they discovered, where they being the CIA and many other nefarious agencies, working with the neo-Nazis in the Ukraine to release these biological weapons of mass destruction along the lines of migratory patterns. So birds, deer, wildlife, they were hoping that these kinds of weapons of mass destruction somehow make it across the borders into Russia and get people very, very sick. So Miss Linda Sun, going back to New York, she was probably involved in some way during this whole COVID thing. Miss Sun's trial on Monday, prosecutors alleged that she earned a government salary of $145,000, received millions of dollars in side deals with Chinese officials, and thanks to the Wall Street Journal, her and her husband, Chris Hu, used their alleged gains to buy a $3.6 million mansion out on Long Island. I remember this story. A $1.9 million condo. A condo? $1.9 million in Hawaii. And a 2024 Ferrari Roma, which was worth around $240,000. I mean, it pays to be a spy, right? So they go on and they talk about all of this, right? So we've got another issue here. We've got the issue of the Democrat Party being completely in bed with the Chinese intelligence government arm. And this is rampant. This is rampant. I remember reading a guy by the name of Sherman Skolnick. He died years and years ago. Mr. Skolnick was an excellent court reporter out of Chicago. He was wheelchair bound, and I think you could still find his archives. It's called the Skolnick Report. And he was talking about all of the dastardly deeds that the Clintons were doing with the Chinese government, including selling nuclear secrets to the Chinese government via LGBTQ organizations and non-governmental organizations and interest groups via Chicago. My goodness, why would they choose Chicago? Why would they allow Barack Obama from Chicago to become president during this time period? It certainly seems as though everyone knew those dirty secrets. Now, once again, this is not old Chris Michaels disseminating disinformation and malinformation and misinformation. I am merely telling you what Sherman Skolnick reported on 20 some odd years ago. And if you don't believe me, head on over to the Sherman Skolnick Report and you can find these archives. I'm not quite sure if the website is still up, but I'm pretty sure that you will be able to find his writing. He talks about a lot of interesting things, how Coca-Cola and AT&T were supposedly involved with election manipulation and many, many other things. And this is honest to God reporting. So I wish somebody like Mr. Skolnick was around because we need somebody like him. I need somebody like him to talk about, right? Because as you know, I am not a journalist. I am merely a commentator, a knuckle-dragging, mouth-breathing, strap-hanging commentator that likes to discuss current events tongue-in-cheek style, which leads us to the bloviating idiot, the 10-cent chicken hawk chicken shit Mark Levin. He is one of the worst human beings on the planet. Not only that, He is a horrible broadcaster, but he is from the Reagan era. He was a lawyer during the Reagan era. He still is a lawyer, as far as I can tell. He likes to gaslight people into oblivion with his very, very uh, legally obtuse, logically dubious arguments about how America first is really Israel first. No, no, no. You hijacked the America first dialogue and tried to make it America first. He was out there saying that America imported its ideas from the ancient Hebrews. Ah, yes, here we go again. America's different from Europe due to its Judeo Christian belief system and history and the Enlightenment, quote unquote. There's not another country on earth, he whined, bar perhaps Israel, that's been founded on such a basis. Well, let's get something straight. Israel is not created by Judeo Christian belief. Christianity is the antithesis to Judaism. There's no such thing as Judeo Christian belief systems, right? They are contradictory. It doesn't work that way. Judaism believes the Messiah has not come. Christianity believes the Messiah has come. And on top of it, if you really try to delve into the theology behind the whole thing, there was some kind of debt that mankind owed to somebody. Now, you can go up and down and try to figure out who that somebody is, but the point remains this: Jesus came down, sacrificed himself, and said the debt is hereby repaid, and so we no longer need to worry about repaying said debt. I am God. So there is no need to continue with this. Let's flip all of the tables we can possibly flip. Let's stop talking about usury. But here we are, bloviating idiot Mark Levin, still saying, oh, yes, Judeo-Christianity, Judeo-Christianity. I mean, this 10-cent loser can't get dumb enough. I just absolutely detest this moron. And here's why. All he has to do, or I should say it this way, all of the boomers, all that they have to do is let their fingers do the walking, because they can do a easy Google search and they will find out what? They will find out that the term Judeo-Christian is buffalo chips. The term Judeo-Christian, now this is from Google, has evolved significantly since its first appearance in the 19th century. While its earliest use referred to narrowly Jewish converts to Christianity, the modern and widespread political meeting emerged in the U.S. during the 30s and 40s to promote interfaith inclusion amongst or against the rising fascism and anti-Semitism. Now, why would they do something like that during the 1930s and 40s? It's because America, during that time period, just like it was during 1914, 16, 17, is isolationist. We don't care what the Europeans do. Let them be the European genocidal maniacs that we've all known to come and love. We have no business in European affairs, whether it's the Kaiser or it's Hitler or God knows whoever else. That's why that this term, Judeo-Christian, did not come about until the 1930s and 40s. It's because they wanted Christian America to be sympathetic to the plight of what was going on in Europe. Now, I'm not saying that interference in all of this wasn't justified, right? Americans do not want to see people rounded up and put into concentration camps unless you're a Democrat and you don't like people not getting their vaccinations. Then we've got a different story. Then we can round up all the people we want. But Americans, by default, are altruistic. And this term, Judeo-Christian, is another term of gaslighting. The people that want to make sure that America goes off to foreign lands and fights wars for other countries remains intact. And so they will try to make some kind of religious connotation to gin up fervor, to go fight the barbarians just beyond the horizon and make sure we use Christians to fight those barbarians. It's a story as old as time. And Mark Levin continuously gaslights the American public and his viewers and listeners time and time again. He's been doing it since September 11th, if not before. I don't know if he was on the radio around the first Gulf War. I would assume he was, or at least giving some kind of talk. And he is continuously trying to be Israeli first. I mean, this guy has hijacked the phrase America first to try to make it Israel first. Now, it's also the reason why you see all of these stupid and idiotic, highly paid influencers on the left, mostly on the right. I'll throw the left a bone, but mostly on the right, that come out in defense of people like, oh, I don't know, Miriam Adelson. Hello, Amuse. I'm looking at you. Hello, Wall Street Apes. I'm looking at you too. I thought you were America first. And then all of a sudden, we've got some kind of criticism of Israel first policies from not somebody that I potentially like, Mr. Mazie, but the idea that Miss Adelson is a dual citizen. Now, there was a lot of flack because Mr. Mazie said that Miss Adelson, a widow of Sheldon Adelson, who basically got Trump into the White House, which is why we're seeing all of these Israel first policies. There was criticism with all of this because she's going after Mr. Mazie. She's trying to set up a $20 million fund to essentially decapitate Mr. Mazie at the primaries so that he doesn't actually reach the race, right? You saw all of these people come out in defense of Miss Adelson. Why? It's because they're probably being paid directly or indirectly to do so. Unlike yours truly, which has no problem criticizing people like Miss Adelson, because I don't give a flying F. I don't give a damn. And she's buying off these massive influencers. I will give you this little tidbit. Your intrepid host, Chris Michaels. I have been inundated, not kidding you, bombarded with interview requests for rabbis, IDF members, people that are trying to promote the LGBTQ plus ideology within the Jewish community. I mean, these people that are reaching out to me, have you not listened to the show? I mean, maybe you've read a transcript. Maybe you haven't actually read the anything between the lines where I'm highly critical of American taxpayer dollars going overseas for any reason. But I've been bombarded with this. And this is a PR campaign that is not going to stop anytime soon. So when I see all of these major conservative influencers coming into defense and rounding and circling the wagons around Miss Adelson, I immediately think bullshit. And here we go. We will get into the Tucker Carlson interview. Tucker Carlson did the right thing. Maybe he was listening to Chris Michaels for once. We have to assume he was, because I am brilliant. And if you're listening to me, you too are also brilliant. He decided to interview somebody, Dane, I can never pronounce his name correctly. I wish I could. Wigington. I wish he came up with a better name. Maybe Dane W. DW. Let's do it that way. Let's pretend we're in the 1930s and we'll just call him by his initials. DW. Dane Wigington. He basically runs a website, Geoengineering Watch. And this is something that's fantastic. Tucker Carlson decided to interview him. Now, this is a concept And it's also a story that yours truly, Chris Michaels, has been watching for literally decades. I have seen what they call chemtrails and geoengineering for 2 odd decades. I didn't believe it. So that means that they were spraying something in the sky a lot longer than 20 years ago. Actually, I'll say this 25 years ago, because I started to notice it back in 2000 and 2001. And I ignored a lot of the stories about chemtrails and geoengineering and stratospheric injections. So if it took me a while to acknowledge what was going on, then it was probably occurring a lot longer before I decided to put two and two together. So here we go. I want you to now, before I go into all this, right? You can listen to the interview, and I've listened to the whole interview. Two, I want you to think about your environment. I want you to think about what's going on around you. If you go for hikes or anything like that, I want you to think about those. I want you to think about what we saw over the prior, I don't know, summer. That seems to be about accurate. What your forests look like, what your hiking trails look like, what the animal life looks like, insects, and so on. Because in my area where I am, on Long Island in New York, I have noticed a significant decline in bugs, honeybees. I've seen the occasional bumblebee, but honeybees are just basically non existent where I am. And tree deaths, a lot of tree deaths. I have something by me called the Pine Barrens on Long Island. And the Pine Barrens is, guess what? A whole strip of pine trees. Pine trees are also known as evergreens, which means they are green year round. Whether it's winter, spring, summer, or fall, they're still going to have green pine needles. Recently, in the past couple of years, these pine trees have suddenly turned brown. And I don't want to hear, well, it's a type of beetle, it's a type of worm. It eats the tree bark and it causes some kind of fungal bloom and an outbreak, and so all these trees dies and whatever. I kind of sound like Louis Anderson, don't you think? And I don't buy it. I never bought it. The problem is that what we're dealing with is something so massive. It's on an industrial scale. It happens daily. It's global, and you can't get out of it. And this is a true weapon of mass destruction beyond nuclear weapons, chemical, biological weapons. We're talking about completely manipulating weather patterns across the planet. Do you understand how damaging that is? All right, let's get into it. Geoengineering expert Dane Wigington was with Tucker Carlson. He references the February 21 Texas deep freeze. Remember when Dallas was below zero and the grid collapsed and Ted Cruz was off into the Caribbean and he was in a thong sunning his cheeks. People caught a lot wind of this and he was criticized for it and he had to cut his vacation short to come back to Texas. Mr. Wigington believes that this was deliberately engineered using HARP ionosphere heating technology. Yes, very good. HARP, H-A-A-A or H-A-A-R-P. That comes from back in the 90s. Manipulating the ionosphere, manipulating thought, manipulating weather patterns. Also, China's earlier open use of endothermic reacting elements that nucleate moisture into instant ice triggered billions in damage to Beijing, and the Chinese government tried to hush it up. Now, that's not me saying it. It's Mr. Wigington. How many times have you seen those pictures over the past couple of years of ducks frozen to the surface of ponds and lakes? That doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. unless you're manipulating the weather. The US replicated the technology of China in earlier 2025, dumping the first record blizzards on New Orleans and Florida's Gold Coast, simultaneously raining above freezing across Alaska, Greenland, Iceland, Siberia. This doesn't happen. By the way, I'm referencing MJ Ultra Truth on X. The International COP Climate Conference, which just happened, right? COP30, covertly used to coerce nations into active or passive geoengineering participation, with showing how the weather manipulation technology works during these events. What these people are saying, what the deep state is saying, mainly the United States, right? Because that's how the deep state operates from the United States. During these COP events, they say, look at the weather we're having. Oh my goodness gracious, it's Brazil and we've got hail. It's Brazil and we've got snow. This is telling these politicians, these bureaucrats, read between the lines. You either are on board with us dominating your weather patterns, or you will suffer because we'll manipulate the weather to your detriment. There was a quote in here from Mr. Wigington when he was talking to Tucker Carlson, that it's easier to kill 1 million people than it is to save 1 million people. What is he referencing? He's basically saying that it would be easier to flood a city of 1 million people, or to create drought conditions over a city of 1 million people, than it would be to feed that city. This is the mindset of the individuals that are behind this kind of weather manipulating technology. And by the way, Governor Newsom, slimy Governor Newsom, every time I look at him, I feel like I need an oil change. He's just so gross with that slick back hair and that stupid smile of his. Every time he says something, he tries to smile. Oh, yeah, right. Why don't you try not cheating on your wife for once? He said that if there was a Democrat president, the Americans would join the Paris Accord lickety-split. In 2 seconds, we would be back as a signatory to the Paris Accords. We need to reduce the amount of carbon that the United States is emitting. We don't have to worry about Africa or Asia or China emitting carbon. It's only the Western world. It's only the United States that we have to worry about. And we would abide by this to create 15-minute cities, force people to have electric vehicles, force people to have a digital ID tied to a social credit score with a carbon credit rating to it. So that's Governor Newsom's plan when he tries to run for president in 2028. He's going to appeal to the globalist community. But anyway, going back to this, Mr. Wigington also says that back in the 1960s, the U.S. hydrogen bomb detonations in the magnetosphere, Project Starfish and Fishbowl, and HARP's 3.6 million watt now treat the entire atmosphere as a weapons lab, rendering all weather artificial and quote unquote nothing we can call natural at this point. Yes. Absolutely true. Why do I say this? Because I can effing see it. Every day I see it. Not so much during the government shutdown. Something happened. But where's the EPA? Where's the Green Party? Where are the Democrats? Because the Democrats, as far as I know, were supposed to be very, very supportive of the environment. The Democrats just absolutely love saving every kind of spotted owl and tree in existence. But as soon as we bring up chemtrails, now we're all quiet on that. Nothing from Bernie Sanders, nothing from Nancy Pelosi, nothing from anybody. Why is that? They don't want to talk about it. Hush, hush. You can't mention it. In this article as well, not the article, but in this interview, Mr. Wigington suggests that a lot of these nanoparticles that are being sprayed from aircraft happen to be aluminum nanoparticles. And he also references strontium, barium, and a couple of other heavy metals. Now, what's the big problem with all of this? Essentially, if his claim is true, which I believe it is because he brings up evidence, you are by default bypassing the immune system of every living thing on this planet. If it is a nanoparticle, it is getting through your defenses. It's getting through the defenses of trees. It's getting through the defenses of animals. And there's nothing that we could potentially do about it except potentially detox from these metals to keep a certain level of these nanoparticles in our body in check. The interview continues. The military is manipulating storms with overpowered nationwide cell towers and NextRad transmissions. Yes. It's so bad that Mr. Wigington says the ozone layer is nearing functional collapse, primarily due to these oxidized particles. And the amount of power going to cell towers and NextRad towers and so on is 1,000% more than what is needed for communications, which these cell towers were marketed for. Remember, when you went over to 5G from LTE, did you really see any kind of improvement? I know I didn't. I thought I got worse service. But for some reason, we've got a cell tower and a relay station on every single corner here in New York, and my service on my cell phone still sucks. We now know why, according to Mr. Wigington, this is the case. Now, he also references how meteorologists, now, this is how you know I'm a broadcast professional. I said the word meteorologist correctly. Not many people can do that. Meteorologists know exactly the path that various hurricanes will take, how these hurricanes will literally sit over a certain location for X amount of days. This is something that is not supposed to happen. How could meteorologists, he says, possibly know 7 days in advance that hurricanes will sit in a specific area for 3 days? These people are literally reading scripts, he says. He references Hurricane Harvey was predicted 7 days in advance to stall over Houston for 3 days because frequency transmissions held it stationary. Hurricane Helene back in 2024 was steered and manipulated in real time using patented technologies. And he says, he claims anyway, that contractors, government contractors like Raytheon and Lockheed Martin are coordinating with NOAA and the National Weather Service to create weather reports. So for all of you meteorologists out there, I know one. One of them got very mad at me. Recently, by the way. That claim that you know what you're doing. Well, where are you getting your information from? Is it from NOAA? Are we simply trusting the science like we did all throughout COVID? Because if we are trusting the science, and well, this is what NOAA says, then I've got some horrible news from you. You've been speckeldorfed. You've been manipulated. Also, we find out the amount of aluminum particles that Mr. Wigington references in his reports, 3,400 parts per billion in soil and water. High aluminum acidifies soil, kills beneficial microbes, fungi, blocks roots from absorbing nutrients, poisons animals, wipes out insect larvae, collapses food chains. And by the way, Mr. Wigington also says, and I tend to believe it, that aluminum is a great conductor of fire, which would explain why we see all of these bizarre wildfires almost every single summer. Except for the blue roof homes, then we're fine. It's because there is so much aluminum around us that any little spark will send all of this up in smoke. Now, that's not me saying this. This is Mr. Wigington. Now, what he also says is that we have a lot of aircraft in the skies. Some of these aircraft are commercial airliners like you take. Some of them aren't. I, for one, know firsthand that the aircraft that we see spraying this junk in the skies do not show up on flight tracker apps. So I would seriously like to know where this aircraft is coming from, where it's going, who is flying it. Is it a contractor? Is it a private jet? And so on down the line. Mr. Wigington, in his interview with Tucker Carlson, claims that a lot of these aircraft have special nozzles attached to them. And so as this aircraft is flying through the skies, at a certain point, the payload is released. And that's where we see these chemtrails coming from. It's not a contrail, it's a chemtrail, right? I could buy this. And the naysayers all come out and they, oh my God, you're telling me that airline pilots are knowingly doing this. No, that's not the argument, moron. You're trying to shift the argument in that direction, but that's not the real argument. The only argument that Mr. Wigington is trying to make is that commercial airlines, some of them, have these kinds of dispersing machinery, these nozzles on these planes, and these pilots are inadvertently spraying this crap across the planet. He also references the type of engines that a lot of these military planes have, and guess what? They are so clean that they almost never have contrails. Once again, that's not me. It's him saying it. Now, what I thought was interesting in his claim is that back in the early 2000s or late 1990s, there was a weight limit adjustment on these planes, which is, it translates into what you and I can bring on board, right? Every time you go on, if you've got a carry-on, it's got to be so big. If you're checking in a bag, it's got to be less than 50 pounds in the United States. Why would they be setting these weight and space limits? It's because some of these airlines have additional weight on them due to the chemtrail dispersing technologies and the aerosolized nanotechnology in the form of some kind of heavy metal. That makes a lot of sense. That also doesn't mean that every single airline that goes up in the sky has this kind of technology on it. It's just that a certain amount does, and you have to level the playing field so that the suspicions that anyone may have are laid to rest. And if you think this isn't going anywhere, we have this. The Defense Department fiscal year 2026 budget. What do we see in this? We see a massive amount of what? We see a massive amount $15.4 billion in funding proposed for atmospheric science, aerosol transport in the atmospheric boundary layer, AI, electromagnetic warfare, microwaves, nanotech, NATO, and so on. You can read it all right here. None of this kind of technology is going anywhere. And that's the sad truth. This is far beyond a species-threatening event. When you're talking about a species-threatening event, you're only talking about possibly mankind, and the planet will continue. But when this is a planet-wide threatening event, because the technology being used goes into every single living plant and animal, then we're on a completely different spectrum. This isn't about controlling mankind. This is about controlling nature itself. And if I didn't know any better, this kind of plot doesn't come from a human mind. This kind of objective points us down the pathway of something on a spiritual plane, or if we're with Avi Loeb, some kind of extraterrestrial plane. I'm not saying which one I believe in. Well, you already know which one I believe in. I'd probably go down the spiritual path more than the extraterrestrial path. There is some kind of agenda to not only depopulate mankind and lower the amount of people on this planet, but there is clearly some kind of agenda to lower the amount of life on the earth itself. And I don't want to hear anybody trying to make some kind of argument. Oh, well, Bill Gates trying to stop stop man-made global warming. This is beyond that. This is way beyond that. It's not only cooling the planet, it is manipulating weather patterns across the planet. There's nothing natural anymore. This kind of agenda doesn't come from a normal human mind. And anybody that tries to tell you that they're trying to save the planet by blocking out the sun is a lunatic, is a megalomaniac. You want to talk about fighting fascism? You should talk about why Raytheon and Northrop Grumman and all the rest of them, the Booktel, I don't know if the Booktel is still around, why they have unfettered access to technologies that the normal population could only dream about. That's real fascism, because you've got those corporations and those contractors determining policy that impacts every single human being on this planet. This kind of technology is the real threat. Mankind needs to wake up. It needs to understand that our total reality is completely manipulated. From weather to social media, it is all being engineered. And we need to start to separate ourselves from this kind of weapon of mass destruction. This is Chris Michaels, 45 whopping minutes, going in and out. Here we go, bloviating endlessly, not having a drink throughout it. So if you like me, you can follow me on Spotify. It's Chris Michaels Show. Or you can follow me on X, C Michaels Show. Interview week is this week and next week, by the way. Thursdays, as always. This Thursday is going to be a lot of fun. We have somebody that will help us along this path, helping us escape the eighth sphere and this kind of transhumanist dystopian society the elites are trying to lead us down into. Next week, is one of our favorite guests. And when I say our, it's Greg Bolden and Chris Michaels. We are a team. And interview night is where we join hands and speak to people with brilliant minds. So next week, Dr. Joseph Farrell, favorite guest. We love talking to him. You love listening to him. So we'll be doing that. Watch out for that interview. There are plenty of other interviews. You can go over to America Emboldened on YouTube, subscribe over there. My account on Spotify, I usually post all of our live interviews. You can see my chubby cheeks moving around. You can see Greg. You can see our guests in real time if you'd like. So once again, this Thursday interview week, next Thursday interview week. I am Chris Michaels, and as always, I will see you next Tuesday.